Hello, everyone. I'm Patrice, the founder of Imagine This Women's International Film Festival. Get ready for an inspiring journey into the world of storytelling with our panel, Shattering Boundaries and Celebrating Diverse BIPOC Storytelling. I would like to welcome our panelists, an acclaimed director known for pushing creative boundaries, Carlos López Estrada. Linda Melendez is a trailblazing director and producer whose work has left a mark on the entertainment industry, and Aeryn Michelle Williams is a rising star in the world of cinema, known for the dedication in bringing underrepresented stories to the forefront. Prepared to be inspired, enlightened, and empowered, this discussion will be moderated by the brilliant John Gibson. John, yes, please take it away.
Hey, thank you so much, Patrice. Linda, Carlos, Henrietta, thank you so much for joining us. First, let me say I'm a huge fan of all of this work. You all are working on some of my most favorite shows and films, projects. So this is going to be really fun. Excuse the background. I'm chaperoning a high school trip. But I felt that this panel was so incredibly important. I wanted to move forward with it. So, Linda, I want to start with you. Talk to the audience about your career trajectory. How did you get started as that led you to where you are now?
Well, I mean, for me, I've had we all have our own journeys, right? We all get to where we're going to be based on the series of opportunities that are given to us. So I actually started as a page at Metro Media, and I fell into the television business. I was going to school to be a sociologist. And I've always been fascinated by TV and movies, setting my clock back in the day when there wasn't DVR to get up and watch something. And so I really, truly worked my way up. Like from a page, I became an engineering scheduler at Metro Media, where I scheduled crews for the Jeffersons one day at a time, Facts of Life, all the big specials that were going on Stage 4. Like we did a huge Michael Jackson special, the Dodgers. But those are all baby steps to my success, because that was me just getting my teeth wet, right? Yeah. And then I got offered a pretty big job at the corporation at Metro Media, but I knew I wanted to do production. So I left that job and that opportunity to go and be somebody's assistant on commercials. So I learned the trade in commercials. I really did. I learned about negative spacing and safe action and safe title and all these things. I had no idea what it was. And then I fell in, I mean, really, truly, I've been blessed with opportunities that I've been able to turn into really a trajectory career. And so I started as the PA to Bruce Gowers, who was the director of Bohemian Rhapsody. I became his assistant director. I did everything with him. And then I started directing on my own at the 94 25th anniversary of Woodstock. Bruce gave me one of the stages to direct. And that's really what happened. I lucked out with Bruce, and I lucked out with this other producer, Bob Kaminsky. May they both rest in peace. They changed my life. They single-handedly changed my life. But it was the opportunities that they gave me that I then worked my butt off to become the best I could be. And and here I am 35 years later, and probably having the best time of my career ever.
Yeah, you said something really key there about one, you started as a page and you did the work, you rolled up your sleeves. And when you wanted to work in another area, you did a pivot and you became an assistant, because a lot of times, particularly in my work, when I'm dealing with students and college grads that want to sometimes leave school and want to be in the C-suite right away, but it's like you have to pay your dues. Any opportunity in the industry, take it, roll up your sleeves, do the work, because if you work hard, you will get noticed and those opportunities will come your way, but you got to hustle and you just have to do it.
You do.
It takes,
You do. You have to do the extra work. Like I would go home and I would study shows. Why did they cut there? I mean, I never went to film school. So I watched The Color Purple, read the book, watched the movie, reread the book, figured out how did Steven Spielberg put that screenplay together? What did he pull up and put in the first act? And it was, I'm very self-taught, as well as having great mentors and teachers around me. So
Yes, I love that.
it is about paying your dues. And so many kids these days think, oh, I'm just going to go out and make my movie and become
Yeah,
Justin Lin. There's only one in thousands of Justin Lins that get those opportunities, you know?
absolutely. And Aeryn, I want to pivot to you because a lot of times when you get a project, you get some that mention in the trades, folks see your name for the first time, people think, oh, it just happened, but you've been putting in work behind the scenes. So tell us about your trajectory to where you are now.
I would, very similarly, and maybe not. I did go to school for acting. I thought I was gonna move to New York and be on Broadway. And at the same time, I was always much more interested in being a writer. And I had to decide for myself, I think this is the path that I want to take. And I went to school for screenwriting, and I put that in air quotes because I went to a school that taught much more about the business of the industry rather than the creative side, which at the time wasn't what I thought I was interested in. I was like, I wanted to go to learn to be an artist and all of this stuff. But what I got was actually much more valuable going to that school. And then eventually I moved to LA pretty directly after grad school, where it was like, hey, figure it out. One thing that our professors told us, on our orientation day for grad school, they were like, listen, you're going to go to LA and this degree doesn't really mean anything. And not to say that it didn't mean anything, what you studied didn't mean anything, but you're all going to start at the bottom pretty much. And so be prepared to do that. And so I got my first TV industry gig on Key and Peele. I was a set PA, and I had no idea what I was doing. It was like I had been hired. It was like, oh my God, okay, I'm getting my foot in the door. And I was like a chicken with my head cut off for the first couple weeks. But you really just have to, as Linda said, roll up your sleeves, be prepared to do anything. They want you to stand out in the street and tell traffic you can't come right now because they're shooting. That's just what you have to do. And eventually, networking is a big thing here. So you meet people, you do a good job, they put in a good word for you somewhere, you get to move somewhere else. So I did being a set PA for a little while, and then I became Keegan Michael Key's personal assistant. And so you do that. Eventually I became a writer's production assistant. You hear the word assistant a lot. That is what a lot of, clawing your way up through this industry is being an assistant. But being an assistant, yes, it's grunt work, but it also allows you to make the connections that you need to make. It puts you, around, for me, getting a writer's production assistant job put me around writers. And that's really important because a lot of learning is done through osmosis, just by being near people, listening to what they're doing, seeing how a writer's room works, and eventually you build those relationships and, writers are like, hey, can I read your script? And that is where I think another really important part of this is if you are a creative and you're trying to break in as a creative, you need to be doing your own work. Because eventually that time might come where someone says hey, well, you know what? I'd like to read your script. And you don't want to be looking like, I don't have anything to show. And so I like to say that I was very, very ambitious about what I wanted in my career. I knew that being an assistant was a step and not an end goal. And so I was very much always writing, always creating, because I never wanted to miss an opportunity. When, someone says, hey, let me read something of yours. And, that did happen. I got my first manager through a showrunner that I worked for as a writer's production assistant. And he was like, I'd like to read something that you've written. And luckily I had something, and it worked out. And, I was able to, get a referral to his management at that time, which was a few years ago now. But yeah, being a production assistant is the way that I, clawed my way up. And then opportunity aligned itself, and I was ready for the moment. And I got, I would say, my break on Umbrella Academy, and that's the short story. There's so much crying and depression in between there, but that's the short part.
Well, I love the Umbrella Academy, so I'll get back to that one. So, Carlos, talk to us about your trajectory.
Yeah, for me, I had a very specific and I think somewhat unusual of a trajectory, but I played a lot in bands growing up. I was in, did the garage band thing, and in high school, I was in all kinds of like music groups. And ever since I was in high school, I just started making music videos for them with, my camera, no money, and our families as crew. And I wasn't a great student, and my English was not amazing. So I really wanted to find, if I ended up going to college, I wanted to find something that was more artistically inclined and that, would prevent me from doing a lot of math. And I had enjoyed filming this video so much that I was like, okay, I think film sounds like something that would allow me to still exercise all these creative interests that I have, whether it's like painting or photography, theater, and also just like not be too hard because I just really struggle with school. And I got into film school here in California. I think similarly, my film school experience was a little bit limited just because I learned a lot of technical skills. I obviously made some like really great friends that I still work with at this time, but no one really asked me once like why I wanted to make movies or how I could look inwardly to tell the stories that I wanted to tell. I feel like my film education was like very surface level. And while I was in film school, I started making music videos because that was what I knew. And I had some friends who were in bands, again, for like $1,000. And that allowed me to start working really early. So it was like my second year of film school, and I was working professionally for all these small bands. I mean, very, very small budgets, like using all my friends and film equipment that I had available from the school. So it was like very, very scrappy, like as indie as it gets. But that allowed me to start building a reel and getting experience on set and understanding how to, construct a story visually. And long story short, I did that for like 6 years. Eventually the budgets got like a little bigger, but still very much like as scrappy as a film production can get. And I made some music videos for this rap group called Clipping, out of which David Diggs had emerged as doing their vocals, and then he moved to New York to do Hamilton. I had moved to New York as well just because I wanted to see, what the city could bring. And we really connected in a meaningful way there. And the day that he left Hamilton, he got approached by these producers who wanted to finance and produce this movie that he had written with his writing partner. And that was my first movie, Blind Spotting, that we filmed in 2017. So it was really like direct trajectory from music videos. I had done some shorts, and then all of a sudden I was shooting my first movie.
That's so impressive, my friend. And what all there's a running theme in all of your stories, and it's this the power of community and networking and connections. Can you share with the audience, Aeryn, I'm going to start this with you, about why that is important? That person that you're sitting beside, that person that you may go to that film festival with, that, again, the other assistant that you guys are doing long hours to roll up your sleeves with, about that could be your future collaborator, business partner, etc.
The community is extremely important. I like to think that a lot of the moves you make in the industry are lateral moves and not always up. People are always focused on sort of like, well, who's the highest person in the room, who's the biggest person in the room that I can try to connect with, when really it is sort of the people who are at your level, because hopefully we're all going to grow together.
Right.
I would say a lot of my job opportunities came from people that like were either, you know, right above me or at the same level, because you're interacting with them the most. And so, yeah, the power of making connections is very important. A lot of people, and I would say me too, don't like the term networking, because it gives this sort of false relationship, you know, because it's like, I'm trying to get something out of you. And Hollywood has a lot of that. And I think sometimes if you can just make genuine connections with people, things will align the way they need to, the way they want, you know. And I went to film school, so I had a lot of friends who, we all moved to LA at the same time. You know, everybody got jobs in different areas and internships and whatnot, but we were all still very connected because of where we went to school. If you don't go to film school or things like that, it is still possible to build that community. But you know, this is a situation where, at least in my purview, or what I aspire to do as a creator, is to bring everyone with me. Because like that's the power of community. And we see that when we talk about like certain, you know, very famous white actors or white executives or creators. They bring their folks with them. They want to make friends. They put those same people in their movies all the time. And, you know, they hire the same writing staffs and things like that. And so I do think that helping each other out and like sort of maybe dissolving the fact that like this is such a competitive field, but like at the end of the day, like cooperation is just as important as being competitive with one another.
Yeah. Linda, I see you nodding your head in agreement. Linda, you're on mute.
Sorry. What I was going to say is, you know, like all those are Aeryn's so right on. It's like you start in the same, pretty much on the same level. And then maybe like as the assistant, you move up a level or whatever. But it is about those relationships. And I will tell you, the very first lesson I learned was when I started as a page at Metromedia. Don, spacing out on his last name, who ran the whole studio network, said, when you are in a restaurant, you don't know who's sitting behind you. He said, your words matter. What you say matters. Be conscious of that around you, no matter where you are, because this is a big, small community, big, small business. People know things. People remember things. And I tell you, I really took that to heart. Not that I'm like, anyway, but you know what I'm saying? It's like, wow, that's really freaking true. Don Stratton, that was his name. It doesn't matter where you're at. It could be, you know what I mean? And like, I'll never forget, like, somebody was so mean to one of the PAs. And I thought to myself, that PA could be producing a movie in 5 years. And all that PA is going to remember is what a jerk that person was to them. Because Aeryn's right. Everybody is like moving up. It may be at their own level, but eventually somebody you knew. There's a young woman I just helped out doing one thing. She's like, oh, my boyfriend's a stand-up and he wants to do a show. I think that maybe you should try to do that with him, with another big guy. It's like, you know, just out of the blue, like it's always, that's how things are. You know, I met Wanda Sykes on Chris Rock 20 years ago, you know, doing her specials with her, having that relationship. It's really important. And you treat everybody the same. I don't care if it's the EP or the runner. Everybody gets the same amount of respect and gratitude, and you will go so far in your career. And learn the crew's names. Learn the crew's names. I read the back of that call sheet every single day just to recall, oh yeah, he's the boom operator. You know what I mean? It's like so important. The little things are so important. And then that follows you through your career. You know what I mean? It really, truly does. It's a beautiful thing.
Because you said the connectivity of the industry, people talk. And if you have a reputation that's not great, people will talk about it. But also, like you said, understanding the crew for even very junior roles, to have this director acknowledge you by name, that sends a huge signal that, wow, I'm valued, I am respected, they're invested in me. And that's going to make someone give 110%, because
150.
it's not, yes, it's not a top bottom approach. It's a everybody holistic. We're looking at everybody matters on this set, and
We're-
that
yeah.
has to be set from the top.
We're all in it together. You can't do your job without the support of your crew. And, and you won't move up if those people are saying, oh man, they were very difficult or whatever.
Yeah. Carlos,
Community.
you want to jump? Yes, community. Carlos, talk about your community. Because I know
Yeah.
you mentioned that once having
Yeah,
family and good friends. Yeah.
I think I'd probably just repeat a lot of what was just said because I completely agree. That for me, it's been everything. And obviously it's really important right now for multiple reasons, but I think starting, I really wouldn't have a career if it wasn't for my friends who I got started with. And I was lucky enough to meet most of them in film school, but I also agree that that's not the only way. And I think that for people there who can't or don't want to go to film school, there is like a lot of, thankfully now with social media, there's a lot of different avenues that you can use to connect with people who are like career oriented or in the same place in your career that you are, or culturally close to sort of like where the kind of people that you want to surround yourself with. But there's so many groups that I think allow you to meet other people who are just getting started, who are looking for opportunities. And what happened with me specifically is all of my friends and I were on the same level. We were very, very early on. We needed experience. We needed money, but we didn't need a lot because we were like living so cheaply. So we were able to work on projects mostly just to like help each other out. And whenever we had a paying job, we were able to bring our friends over and we're like, hey, look, we can give you like very, very little money. But it's a cool project and it's going to help. And then when that person got a paying job, then they would return the favor and they were just like, look, maybe it's not the position that you want to do, but you can do art department and we'll pay you for a weekend. And like little by little, people started getting more and bigger opportunities. And because we had been for years helping each other out, it was just like a no-brainer. Like, of course, now that I can pay someone a decent rate, like I'm going to bring over the people who have been, working for me for 2 years, making very, very little pay. And then that really just snowballed to the point where like people started getting decent jobs and like staff positions, and someone became like a junior exec and someone started working at a very decent production company. And before you know it, your little circle of friends that was doing music videos for, $1,000, all of a sudden it's working in professional productions, and then they've graduated to narrative film. So at least for me, it really was just like the only way that I could start working. Because if I had just tried to like enter the big leagues with the experience that I had and with the knowledge that I had, it just would not have worked. So yeah, for me, it was really everything.
And, and speaking, as marginal, between us from historically marginalized communities, we don't get multiple opportunities. So as others, so if, like you said, if you're launched out there in the, the big pool, if you will, and not succeeded, you more times, 9 out of 10 times, you would not have been given that second opportunity. So Carlos, I want to start with you. Talk to us about a project that you really, that it just, when you think back on it, it delights you. Obviously, you're Oscar nominated. You will carry that with you forever. And then talk to us about a project, and you don't have to necessarily name it, but something that was really difficult and challenging, because we know while we're in this wonderful space of diversity and inclusion and the more diverse projects that we've ever seen, we still have a really, 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 I can't say really enough, long way to go. We're not there yet. And so even as much as the three of you have accomplished, I am still certain that you're probably still frustrated that you still have to not sell yourself, but validate your experience. And this is what I deserve. I work hard for this. I shouldn't have to negotiate more than the next person. But I have pedigree, but for creators of color, we still are facing these brick walls when we go into some of these rooms, even with a long list of wonderful things to our credit.
Yeah, I mean, I think it happens a lot for creators of color, but it also happens a lot for content about communities of color. And I as I'm entering, developing some TV and selling my own stuff, I've realized that we're still, the Latinx community is still considered, maybe not openly, but people still think of it as like a niche market, and people still think of it like this thing that is adjacent to the mainstream. And like you can do this show if you sell it to the Spanish speaking networks, or if you sell it to the Spanish speaking divisions. And I've just realized that even where we are right now, and with all the progress that has been made, with all the creators that have been working, so hard for decades to get us here, it still just feels like there's a barrier of entry before being able to feel mainstream. And that's really discouraging. It's also kind of like fills me, I think, with like grit or something, to just want to push a little harder and want to do whatever I can to move a conversation forward. But I have noticed that the moment that you pitch or you present something that is takes place in Mexico, or it's bilingual, or it's mostly focused on this one very specific community, it's almost like people start listening differently, and like their body language changes, and the people they forward you to is like, oh, okay, pitch over here. It's been very apparent to me, and I know that there's still so many people in our community that are pushing so hard to change that. So I do feel hopeful, despite the reality. But yeah, I think it's going to be an uphill battle still for us for a little while.
Which is why we have to be C-suites at every different level, and every different type of studios, talent agencies, unions. They have to start looking like us. You have champions that understand, or like you're not presenting, this is my shared experience about my community, and someone not from the community is telling you, well, that's not authentic. This is my lived experience from my community, and you're not telling me it's not authentic, because you are still leaning on some outdated stereotype that doesn't even remotely connect with my experience. Aeryn, share again something you were really proud of, but also something that was challenging that you had to overcome.
Yeah, I will answer that question. I just kind of wanted to connect our two questions, and what Carlos was just saying. We talk a lot about diversity and diversity that, diversity this, but I think that, and I hate, and I don't want to deter anyone from being a creative, being a director, a writer, but a lot of the decision-making positions are still held by primarily white men or women. And so if it's great to diversify in front of the camera, behind the camera, all very important, but if we have to go into rooms and meet with producers and executives who don't quite understand what we're doing, or it's not authentic because it's authentic to who, and it's sort of have to constantly be pitching our validity first, we're always going to be sort of behind the ball.
All of that, yes.
So I do, when I am asked to speak, I do like to steer people or open people's minds to other types of positions within the industry that, like, you might think you want to be a filmmaker, and that's great, but you might find that like maybe development is a great place for you. I mean, artistic skills are much needed in the development area. A lot of times we're working with folks who are business majors, or they have, MBA backgrounds. They're not necessarily creative, and it would be great to have folks who do have that creative sort of skill behind the scenes, or, you know, in those offices, in those suites, that sort of can help push along this whole thing. And that goes for talent agents and managers as well. A project that was challenging, I'll say one that I think I find very successful that I like to talk about.
Okay.
I worked on a show called Harlem. Hey, Linda.
Oh, I love Harlem. Yes.
And, you know, that show, so I had come from Umbrella Academy, where I was the only writer of color in the room and also the only queer person. And I'm used to that. I went to school that was primarily white. Like, I'm used to that. You know, there are uphill battles, there are microaggressions, things that you have to deal with, conflicts, education, all the stuff that you don't get paid for when you are sort of the token in the room. But going on to Harlem, I had experienced something that I had never even seen before, which was a primarily Black writers' room and primarily women who were at, you know, either mid-level or sort of executive producer level writers. Right. And that was really eye-opening to me. It was safe. It was fun. I wanted to go to work every day. I was like excited because a lot of these sort of BS that maybe you have to deal with sometimes just sort of fell away. I think sometimes people don't quite understand that, like, sometimes being the only something in a room, it just means that everyone is speaking on a different wavelength, right? And so you have to assimilate into that wavelength. You have to use cultural references that the other people understand. I have to use their cultural references. Yes. But when I was in Harlem, it was like, we're all speaking the same language. And I don't just mean English, I mean culturally. And I feel like that's such an important part, or like, I don't know if that's a success for me, but it was a successful moment in my career that I was like, oh, wow, this is actually sort of what this feels like when you don't have to, again, sort of, you know, pitch your validity or like, you know, change the way you might pitch something in a room because, well, they may not understand that reference. So I have to use something that it's mental work that you don't realize that you're doing all the time. And so I don't know if that quite answers your question, but.
No, it does answer. And, you know, being the only one in the room, I should not have to bear the burden of carrying 42 million people or 65 million people, if you look at the Black and brown communities, on my shoulders by being the only one, because there is diversity within our communities. There's different perspectives. So that's why we need others, and why it's so important that we bring people along with us whenever we can in that room. And what you said even about Harlem, I remember the cast of Crazy Rich Asians, you know, when they were assembled, looking around like, wow, it's us. So we can speak freely, or we don't have to explain this is what this cultural reference means, or we all eat the same thing. It was just like they had never experienced that before. And, you know, it was just, you know, once you have it, it is game changing, and you work really hard to, again, replicate that, and somehow that this is for us, by us, if you will. Linda, your experience with something that you're really excited about, but something that just challenged you a little bit, and you just had to, you know, pivot and to get past it. Because as folks who are looking at this, looking to get in the industry, there will be roadblocks, and you have to understand how can you move around or, you know, adjust. And others, it's, you know, it's for every successful story, there are those stories that like, ooh, this is one of those days, or this is one of those weeks, or this is one of those projects.
Well, I mean, I've had actually quite a few of those ups and downs in my career. Aeryn, I knew your name, but we never were in the room because everything was always like, you guys had the room off a lot, then we came and the writers weren't there. And oh my God, I knew you. Golly gee.
This is what I love. This is what I love.
Yeah, Harlem was an incredible show to be on, I have to say. It was really, and who doesn't love Scott King in the room where you're laughing constantly? Oh my God. But that was really a beautiful thing to be on, I will say, that show. I love those ladies, all of them. They're fantastic. But so that wasn't, I had some issues, but more like in the producing directing area where I wasn't quite sure where my space was. And it was the first time I had done the job. So, the first year was better. The second year was not great, unfortunately. But having said that, the show is still incredibly successful. And I did 3 of the 8 episodes that I thought were all amongst the funniest of the group that came out. You know what I mean? But I think that the interesting thing about me is that I've been hired, obviously, because I was Latin and female. I definitely have had those opportunities. But honestly, I never positioned myself like that. I was a director who happened to be Latin and female. And sometimes I would go on a show and everybody would just question everything I was doing. And I get it because they'd never worked with me. But as long as you have an answer for why you're doing something and why you need something, then you can have a discussion. You know what I mean? Oh, well, I don't think I'll need that because of this or whatever. Oh, but I was thinking this is how this scene would work and play out and get to the act break. So you have those conversations, obviously, in tone meetings and stuff. But when I first started, we didn't really have those. And I remember one time I was on a pretty big show for ABC, multi-camera. And I'll say it was the Elmo Awards, Latin female director directing the Elmo Awards. I had a man that overrode me on the headset, and the stage manager did not listen to me. He listened to him and really screwed up this major transition. Major.
Wow.
And all I could do was bite my tongue and keep going forward, knowing that he had majorly fucked up something in the show. Excuse my French, everybody. Sorry. You know what I mean? And that, I think, was the thing that really stands out the most in my long career of always having to defend yourself and stand up for why you need something.
Yeah.
And you have those moments. So we've all had them. I was on one show, I didn't get asked back and I couldn't figure out why. And my agents found out it was because I was too much on the actor side. All these weird things, people just have weird things and you're not going to be a fit everywhere. I mean, that's really important for us to remember. We're not always going to be a fit. Not every show is right for everyone. And if you go in and there's something that's you're bumping against, we tend to think, oh my God, we suck, we don't deserve this or whatever. Sometimes it's not us at all. It's because they don't want to see past their nose, because they don't want you to succeed. They want to say to the studio, look, we hired them, but they failed. You know what I mean? That's what they're looking for, is those excuses. And we just have to fight hard to not give them those excuses. Oh, you're on mute, John.
Yeah, let's take myself off the mute. And that, like you said, the story of, I have the expertise. This is why I was selected for it. And the point I can fight for it and validate it, it is so frustrating. And we hear these stories time and time again for folks from our communities within the industry, which is why for folks that are watching that you might, as Aeryn said, you might not want to be the creator. You might not want to be the cinematographer, the DP, the director. This industry has opportunities for everyone. And so you need those, you need the MBAs, those business schools. We need more diverse acquisition executives to, in my day-to-day, I manage, as Carlos knows, over 40, 54 groups, a lot of the multicultural, I hate to say, again, niche festivals. And you talk about the creativity, the energy, these are people who I believe, given opportunity and access, will change the industry, but no one is there to see it. And so, thankfully that you now have a number of multicultural streaming platforms to highlight them, but we need folks within the industry at every single level. You need talent agencies from our community, agents from our communities to also identify the next big thing, because talent agencies have an enormous amount of power. There's sometimes, I think, they fly under the radar about the conversation about D&I within the industry and what they can present, who they can present. to these studios, if you will, as this is the next best thing. So again, for folks watching, there is a space for you. We absolutely need you. So please consider, this industry and helping to change this industry. Now I want to move to something a little bit more fun and light.
Mhm.
What's that? Without, I don't want to give up anything that might be your IP or anything, but what is like that dream project that if someone came to you and said, Linda, Aeryn, Carlos, you said your budget is X, Y, and Z. You know what? We'll give you a little bit more. But what is it that you would kind of put out there for the people to consume? Because I know you all have so much in your minds. Again, I don't want you to put out anything that someone might try to steal, because you know how this industry is. But just something that, but just something fun. Carlos, let me start with you.
I would probably say like an anthology series with all Latinx writers, directors, producers, so that we got to tell like a breadth of stories and not just one, but we just got to explore all the corners and nuances in our community.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, Aeryn.
I think I'm from Detroit, and it's always been my dream to bring the industry here, to shoot things here and share about the community. It doesn't necessarily have to be about the community, but my long-term goal is to be able to provide work for people. And I think Detroit has an amazing workforce. Obviously, it's like very heavily tied to the auto industry, but I think this would be a fantastic place to just have like a little part of Hollywood here. And so that's like my dream thing. I also would say that I would love for anything that I create to be original. We are heavily IP driven in Hollywood right now. It's like oftentimes original ideas are just way at the bottom in service of podcasts and books and graphic novels, which is all great stuff. But I guess I yearn for a time where, original ideas were also sought after.
Okay. It's Linda.
Well, Aeryn, I have to tell you, I didn't know you were from Detroit. I'm born and raised there. And that is my dream too. I have a story. Yeah, I have a story of me and my two girlfriends, best friends in high school, that I want to do in Detroit. And I have a series that I want to do in Detroit, because I'm with you on that. Detroit is a beautiful, hardworking city. And the people there wear their pride on their shirts. I saw your Detroit t-shirt. Yes. I mean, it's like, that is my dream, is to do projects there, because that's actually where I'd like to retire to, like go back to. It's an amazing, beautiful city with great surrounding areas. And if we could do something like that, if I could do something like that there, I would be so happy and so excited and grateful to be able to work in my city and give people jobs and, use friends as background, like everything, you know what I mean? Like it would be killer. And I have a couple really great projects that I've been developing, and, I'm late to the development game because I was a director for hire. But that's my dream too, Aeryn. Maybe we'll be there together. It'd be amazing.
It's the community's happening as we speak. So
I was just about to say, audience, do you see this? We are going to see something with Linda Mendoza, Aeryn Michelle Williams will be collaborating. I mean, I love this. And, for the audience, this is how you can get, if you want projects like your states, vote folks in and actually elected officials for production tax credits. Michigan used to have them. It was very aggressive. I think it kind of went away. But again, actually, you have to press your local elected officials. This is why some states like Georgia and obviously California and New York, but Illinois, New Jersey, New Mexico, the reason why back in Louisiana, you see all of this production. This is what the MPA does also behind the scenes. We work with state legislatures and our studios to get these tax credits in. So come on, Michigan, get it done, because Detroit needs it. And why this is, our industry is very heavily unionized, Detroit is well. So it is a perfect natural synergy.
Yes.
So we need to make this happen. Man, this is it. Go ahead, Linda.
I was just gonna say, I have one last little side thing to add.
Yes.
In between my first and second year of college, I went to Wayne State University in Detroit. I worked on the line at Chrysler. I was on the production line for an entire summer. It was such a wonderful experience that I'll never forget. And the work ethic just there, all the pastors that were on the line, it was like a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing. I love
And
Detroit.
one thing I want, and we talk about like projects that I like to see more of, when you talk about reflecting the Latine and the Black American experience, is can we get trauma-free storytelling?
Yes, please, God.
Can we please? And you know what, Linda, I saw that you worked on the Grand Crew. I love the Grand Crew because I just thought it's just us at a wine bar acting silly. And we do this. It's like everything does not have to be trauma-based. Can we just exist? Can we have a Hallmark type of movie where it's going to be cheesy, but you're going to enjoy the roller coaster ride to the end? But I think our communities are deserving this. We over-index, particularly for the Latinx community. You support everything. And that's what this project Blue Beetle, I love so much about it, is because it just celebrated, and I'm a huge, superhero movie fan just from growing up. I saw myself within that family, and I thought, this is why I got almost like a little angry about it, because I knew, obviously due to the strike, the cast couldn't really speak out about it. But I'm like, this is such a beautiful film. The grandmother was my favorite because she reminded me of my grandma, who used to go hunting on weekends for the hunting season. But it was just, we just exist and celebrate our families and our communities again without the trauma. We're tired. We all have PTSD from it. But so as you all start working on your next new projects, I hope that you all are given the freedom and latitude to create trauma-free projects that will just really speak to the community, because we need it.
Yes.
And with that, I'm gonna let each of you give a closing statement, because we're at time. I could talk to you all for hours upon hours, days upon days. Carlos, let's start with you, buddy.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm happy to be a part of this panel, because I think spaces like this are the reason why these conversations continue to evolve and continue to move forward. And I'm happy to be here with all three of you, because I think you're all clearly such thoughtful and like meaningful thinkers. And I would just continue to encourage, everyone listening to continue showing up to these types of events, to continue creating your own spaces whenever possible, to continue building your community and opening doors for, people like us who are only here because someone who was above, who had more experience, or a position of power saw something in us and decided to give us an opportunity, maybe despite having, or at least for me specifically, having the experiences or like the mastery of my craft, and a lot of people who like saw something in me and decided that they wanted to support my journey. So I would just encourage everyone listening to carry this forward and to continue making space, room, and opportunities for people who are searching.
All right. Aeryn?
Wow, I have so many parting words. I think that
Share them all.
I'll just sort of reiterate something I've already said, which is there are a wealth of positions in the TV film industry
Yes.
that need faces and people that look like us, or this panel that reflect the wider world. And I think, until we get those sorts of positions, So, you know, that business school degree, I mean, in some of this stuff, you don't even need a degree. You're going to start in the as assistant anyway.
Yes, absolutely.
But, you know, if you enjoy reading scripts, thinking about scripts, you know, it's a development, acquisitions. That was a really smart point that you brought up about when people make these films, you spend all this time and energy and money to make your film.
Yeah.
To the film, you know, festival for not for no one to see it, but for the people who can buy that film and give you a theatrical release or a streaming deal. Like, those positions are just as important as being the writer, as being the actor, the boom operator, you know, whatever. And I also think, you know, the WGA strike just recently ended. Yay, congrats to us.
Yes.
And I think if that shows anything, is that there is strength and solidarity and resolve when people come together to say, no, we're not going to take this. And I something that was very apparent to me. Now, I wasn't around during the 2007, 2008 strike, but I imagine that the line looked vastly different. I mean, the amount of BIPOC creators that were there, as like the industry is changing. We can see it. Yes, we have a long way to go, but it is changing. And that advocacy from people like us forced our negotiating committee to think about things that they had not thought about before. And so strength and solidarity and advocacy for ourselves, for others, and you know, I like to say, like, not just Black people. For me, you know, I like to think about my world is multicultural, and I want the everything to reflect that. So,
well said, Miss Linda. I'm gonna have you close us out. I know you have some nuggets.
Well, I mean, honestly, I think that everything that Carlos and Aeryn have said is pretty much what I would say too, because Aaron's right. There are so many other opportunities within our business that, you know, once you get in and you're able to see what's going on, you may think, oh, you know what, I actually do want to be a DP. And you want to go to the camera department. I mean, there's so many wonderful opportunities within our business that aren't just the director or the producer or the writer or whatever, production designers, you know, operators. I think the one thing that I would say more than anything, though, is to just always take a moment for gratitude. Even when you're in the absolute worst possible freaking situation, you are still there. You still got yourself there. Just take that moment to yourself, take a deep breath, say, I got this, and keep going forward, and make sure that even when everything is going to shit, you do not forget your gratitude, because that is something that I think is so important, that, you know, I don't take anything for granted. Even if I go to a new show, I'm watching those shows, I'm reading those scripts while I watch the show. Oh, how do they do this? Oh, what are their transitions? Where do they use music? There's so many things to learn on any given. I mean, I'm still learning. I've been doing it for a long time. Every show I go to, I learn something new. And I'm always grateful for that, because you want to keep growing.
I so appreciate that. And also, I would also say, for folks looking to join the industry, humility is a strength and an asset. And just wear it on your sleeves. And with that, Carlos, Linda, Aeryn, thank you so much for today. Thank you for Patrice and the festival for inviting me to participate. This festival is doing such impactful work. It is one of my favorite partners, and I have 54 at the Motion Picture Association. So again, uplifting the voices of women, providing opportunities for them, for their stories to be seen and heard. Last year, I think I was one of the judges for the short film competition, and I was blown away, like literally blown away by the submissions, particularly in the animated space. So this festival is doing some incredible work. So again, please continue to support the Imagine This Women's International Film Festival. And with that, we say thank you and have a wonderful day.
Thanks so much.